Introduction to Neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is a word that seems to be used more and more often. Blogs, social media, and books are a few of the places where we might find discussions about neurodiversity, usually alongside conversations about disability and school or work accessibility. The meaning and use of the word are not always consistent, but tend to depend on the speaker or author. In this video, I will attempt to describe neurodiversity based on explanations given by the person who invented the term. And then I will share some of the ways neurodiversity might inspire us to think differently about being or identity and knowing, thinking and learning, especially in educational spaces. The word neurodiversity can be broken down into two parts: neuro and diversity. Let's start with diversity. We can observe how diversity is good for an ecosystem. Each species has a role to play in the wide web of life. The more variety of life forms, the more sustainable that ecosystem will be. Similarly, we find diversity within species. Human diversity is found in genetics, including how genes are expressed through physical attributes, as well as diversity of age, gender, culture, language, economic status, geography, and more. One example of a physical or biological feature that is unique for each person is neurology, or the nervous system led by the brain. This is where the neuro in neurodiversity comes in. Some discussions about neurodiversity focus on brains and their differences. But brains and their nervous systems do not work alone. They are intricately interconnected with all other body systems, and all systems are connected in some way to social activities and cultural norms. In this way, our body and our mind are never separate. It can be said that we humans are body minds, and as body minds, we are always in relationships with other body minds. Being and knowing are functions of the human body mind. We are and we know in diverse ways, with no one way being better than the other. This is the core value of neurodiversity. The term neurodiversity was invented in the 1990s by Judy Singer, an Australian sociologist and a member of the Independent Living on the Autism Spectrum mailing list, an early email community that believed in neurological pluralism. On her current blog, she states, quote, "The term neurodiversity in its political form caught on because it captures the authority of both environmental science and neuroscience to replace the purely negative and unbalanced characterization of neurological minorities by the 20th century psychomedical complex. All humans are neurodiverse because each of us has a unique brain comprised of our genetic heritage, nature, and culture and experiential recordings, nurture. Thus, it can be seen that neurodiversity is simply a catchy name for human nature. This reminds us that there is an environmental basis for respecting the variability of cognitive differences, both abilities and disabilities." End quote. From a neurodiversity perspective, then, there are only differences, variants, and unique constellations of being and knowing. There is a move away from deficit thinking, labeling, and categorizing because there is no longer a reason to compare one individual to another. Although scientists at times have used tools such as MRIs to pathologize brain functioning, we need to keep a couple of things in mind. Jenny Blair at the Yale School of Medicine explains that, quote, "The brightly colored images that appear in journals and news reports usually don't represent one brain at a time, Rather, they represent highly processed composite results obtained by processing several individuals' brain data through statistical algorithms." End quote. We also need to keep in mind that results of what is considered normal or typical are based on assumptions that certain things, such as memory and attention, actually exist and actually reside in a specific location in the brain. There is no biologically normal brain, mind, or body-mind. There are, however, expectations from society about what humans should look and act like. Societal expectations for being so-called normal or typical can be tied to how we look and behave. For example, in many places, when learning or working, we are expected to sit still, engage in small talk at appropriate times, maintain appropriate eye contact, get good grades, especially in reading, writing, and math, and we're expected to work hard, work long, and work better than our peers. This idea of normal privileges certain groups of people and leads to multiple forms of discrimination, including racism and ableism. Discrimination often occurs alongside overgeneralization. Although we might identify with various cultural groups, professional groups, interest or activity groups, and ability or disability groups, we really can't capture a sense of our unique being by offering up a list of general group labels. For example, the experience of being Hispanic or Latinx is different from person to person. The experience of being a woman is different from person to person. The experience of being autistic is different from person to person. While finding commonalities helps build community, we shouldn't overgeneralize and assume everyone in a particular group experiences life in the same way. The more nuanced we understand life and identity to be, the more we will be able to value human diversity. To illustrate, an autistic Mexican American woman might have much in common with another autistic Mexican American woman, but might also find differences because of their religion, career choice, sensory profiles, modes of communication, hobbies, etc. Both commonalities and differences can be celebrated when thinking intersectionally. Intersectionality refers to the interconnectedness of social categories, along with the various overlapping modes of discrimination and privilege that are produced by society. Societies also have set expectations for how humans should develop and how they should think and learn. In the US and other westernized countries, linear, age-appropriate development is expected. Teaching and learning occurs mainly through one mode, language. Education, whether in schools, colleges, or workplace trainings, is usually built around listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Thinking and learning are usually expected to occur formally, in schools, colleges, or training programs where learners are assessed on discrete sets of skills. In contrast, some other cultures expect development to happen organically, occurring in different ways and at different times, depending on the individual. Some cultures expect teaching and learning to occur beyond the institutions, in homes, communities, and out in nature. And some societies tend to value whole picture thinking over skills and procedures. So how might neurodiversity inspire us to think differently about education? Knowing, thinking, and learning from a neurodiversity perspective means that there is no normal, typical, or expected path or place for learning, and that there are multiple modes for knowing. Neurodiverse knowledges go beyond learning styles and multiple intelligences or specific cultural expectations. They involve each social body-mind in its unique configurations. I use the plural, configurations, because they are multiple as they shift over time and across contexts. Who we are is how we experience the world, and how we experience the world is how we think and learn. Humans are infinitely diverse, given our differing body minds and social experiences. So how can we celebrate and encourage others to value neurodiversity in our places and spaces of learning? The Micro Moments in Neuroplexure website is a place for people interested in neurodiversity and education to join together in co-learning, exploring, discussing, and experimenting with how we might think with neurodiversity and think neurodiversely. Thank you for visiting Micro Moments in Neuroplexure. Please see the free membership link for more information.